So, could erectile dysfunction medications actually help your heart or even lower your risk of death? Hey, Dr. Blackwell here, Panavita RX. This is a wild study with some really crazy findings, and the conclusions might not be what you think though, even though the data is pretty wild here. So let's jump in. So this is a real interesting study looking at basically saying, hey look, could taking Viagra or Cialis improve your heart health, and could it actually improve your chances of living, decrease your risk of dying? Okay, so they took a lot of information over a long period of time. The Journal of Sexual Medicine is where this is reported. Over 70,000 men, looking at men with erectile dysfunction, guys who have vascular risk factors, heart risk factors, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things like that, and collected this data over 14 years. And so what they did is they essentially said, well, let's look at guys who are taking these PDI5 inhibitors, which is phosphodiesterase enzyme number 5 inhibitors, which is Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, Stentra, these medications, and said, well, guys who have had, they called it an exposure. It's like guys who've had an exposure to one of these kind of drugs versus guys who have not had exposure. Basically, guys who are using Viagra, Cialis, and the like, and their generics for erectile dysfunction, guys who are not. And they just said, let's divide them up and let's see what we get. So the results, which are absolutely wild, is that men who were using the medications had a 13% lower chance of major heart problems, heart attacks, strokes, big deal, gets better. 39% lower risk of heart-related death, which is kind of important. And then a 25% lower chance of dying from any cause, what we call all-cause mortality, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, trauma, everything else. So, and the thing that was also demonstrated is it looked like the more that they were using the medications was the bigger benefit that they had. So the question is like, okay, well, should I just be going out taking Viagra and Cialis and using it every day, 3 times a day, and it's gonna help me live longer and lower my risk of heart attack and stroke? That's not what these studies do. This is epidemiological, meaning it's associative data, meaning it links things. It says, hey, we see these trends the same way, in bigger cities, you see more crime. Well, there's also more churches in bigger cities. So does that mean more churches cause more crime? So that's kind of how associative data works. So it generates some interesting questions, but it doesn't necessarily conclusively prove anything. Now, I definitely think that there are some very interesting mechanisms for which you might say, yeah, I think that you could probably propose that, using medications that improve your blood vessel health, improve the release of nitric oxide, improve, and benefit you from a vascular perspective, that is absolutely a critical component for living well and living longer and living better. I think you could probably design an experiment to show that there's benefit there, but that's not what this study does. But certainly this is at least, evidence to say, hey, this is something you should be thinking about. Let's live longer, let's live better, let's improve our vascular health. Maybe you have some different thoughts on the study. You can drop those in the comments below. Give us a like and a subscribe. Certainly you can come visit us at PanaVitaRx.com if you want to talk about these kind of medications and the longevity protocol that we use for men, that I use for myself. And this is definitely a part of it for me. And you can join us next time for more men's health and longevity content.